This is House Education on Thursday, May 15th, 2025. The committee this morning is going to delve a little deeper into sort of real world ways school districts have tried to address escalating special education costs. And so we've got folks here from two different school districts to kind of talk about what they have done and how it's been working out. I think if it's, I assume you all haven't set up an order of testimony, but let's begin with Nicole Fortier. That would be great to talk to us about what goes on at MMU. Good morning and welcome. And if you just introduce yourself, and love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Nicole Fortier. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations here at the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District. So I will jump in. Good morning. I'm grateful to be here to share some of the programs that the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District, MMUUSD, has developed. Initiatives designed not only to meet the needs of some of our special education students, but also to address the growing challenges of reduced access to external therapeutic programs and the associated costs of such programs. As you're likely aware, access to therapeutic educational placements has continued to decline, while the costs of which have continued to rise. Some of these placements now range from $65,000 to $146,000 or more annually per student, not including transportation. This trend has forced districts, MMUUSD included, to make increasingly difficult decisions about how to best support students who are experiencing significant dysregulation, safety concerns, and mental health challenges. These are students who at this time are not ready to thrive in a traditional classroom setting. MMUUSD has felt the impact of both the limited availability of outplacement programs and the financial strain associated with their rising costs. So in response, with a commitment to keeping students connected to their communities whenever possible, we launched an in-district alternative program many years ago, the Multi-Age program, which served at that time both elementary and middle school students. Over the years, this program has evolved and now is known as Team Evolve at our Browns River Middle School. This program was designed to give students the foundational skills they need to become successful learners, active participants in the classroom, and positive members of the school community. The outcomes from Team Evolve have been encouraging, both in terms of student growth and cost effectiveness. The program currently supports approximately 10 students, and it's staffed by 2 licensed educators and 2 paraprofessionals. By integrating the program into an existing middle school facility, we've avoided any additional leasing costs, so maximizing both our educational impact and fiscal responsibility. Building on the success of Team Evolve, we introduced a second alternative program in fiscal year 25, which is Team Elevate, and it's housed at Smiley Memorial School. Team Elevate serves elementary students, and it's staffed to support 10 to 12 students. Like its predecessor, this program is integrated into an already existing school building, so allowing us to utilize existing resources while maintaining a robust continuum of support. Compared to the high cost of out-of-district placements, these in-district alternative programs are undeniably cost-effective, but just as importantly, they allow our students to stay connected to their school communities and work towards reintegration into a traditional classroom. We fully recognize the challenges facing both the state and local districts in supporting students with complex educational and emotional needs. We respectfully ask the committee to consider investing in and supporting district-based alternative programs. The success that we've experienced here at MMUUSD demonstrates that such models can be both programmatically effective and fiscally responsible while keeping students at the heart of our efforts. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do you have any sense as to, without this program, what the district would be spending or what it was spending before these programs were created?
Yeah, so I can give you a pretty high level cost, a per student cost of what each of those individual programs are. So as I mentioned, we had We have 2 licensed staff at Team Evolve and 2 paraprofessionals. We're currently servicing 10 students at that program. So for fiscal year 25, that's a cost per student of approximately $25,000. And as I mentioned in my testimony, the out-of-district placements are currently anywhere from, up as high as $146,000 per student. At Team Elevate, which is our elementary program, we have 4 licensed educators and a paraprofessional. We're currently only servicing 7 students at that location. We're staffed to accommodate 10 to 12. We're working through some challenges with particular students at this moment, but the cost per student at that program is $52,000. Currently, at capacity, it should be around $33,000 per student.
And has this eliminated the need for out-of-district placements, or are there still students with high enough or different needs that is still requiring having to do out placements?
We do still have some students out-of-district placements. I can't speak to if our alternative program cannot support those students, or it's simply the level of service that was offered at a previous time, which is sometimes difficult to pull back. But I can ask that question and follow up if that's helpful.
And if you're not at capacity, is there interest in sort of like collaborating with other neighboring districts who might also have the same needs?
Like I mentioned, I know at Smiley at this time, our Team Elevate, there were particular challenges with an individual student. So I think a conscious decision was made to not bring in that 10 to 12 number of students, to maintain 7 where we're at, figure out those kinks, and then allow other students into that alternative program. I can't speak to if the conversation has been had about bringing in students from an out of district, from another district, but I'm sure it's something we'd be interested in having the conversation on.
Questions from the committees? Rob.
Hi, just a quick question. So thinking about all of the students that you're serving right there at your school, 3 years ago, how many of those kids would have actually had a placement in a therapeutic school?
Unfortunately, as the director of finance, I wish I had my director of special services here with me. She's at a conference today. I can't answer that question at this time, but I'd be very happy to follow up with you.
Yeah, just interested. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Heather, I would say you're up, but I know that Dylan will be joining in about 15 minutes. Hopefully we can sort of stretch the time and have him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the record, Heather Bushy, Director of Finance at the Essex Westford School District. I also serve currently as the president of the Vermont Association of School Business Officials. As Chair Conlon said, my co-director of special education should be joining us. He was gonna try and get here as soon as possible. So he may be able to answer some of the more programmatic questions that have come up. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. We are here to share Essex Westford's experience in establishing a therapeutic program within our district to meet the growing needs of our students on individualized education programs, or IEPs, and how this approach has not only improved the experience for our students, but has also proven fiscally responsible. Over the past several years, access to outside therapeutic education programs has steadily declined. Several of these programs have actually closed, and the remaining ones are operating at or beyond capacity. As a result, districts across Vermont have faced growing challenges in finding appropriate placements for students with significant emotional and behavioral needs, as well as students with multiple and complex disabilities. And we in Chittenden County have been a little more fortunate than some of our districts that were in other areas of the state. They're just access has really been a huge problem, speaking for just for my role in VASBO. When these outside placements are unavailable, districts are confronted with the troubling reality that some of our most vulnerable students may go without the intensive services they require to succeed in a timely or coherent manner. Recognizing both the shortage of therapeutic placement options and the unsustainable costs associated with some outside programs, as you heard Nicole testify to, at Essex Westford, we've seen tuition, and again, not including other transportation costs, for us as high as $150,000 to $175,000 for some of our students. We at Essex Westford decided that we were going to launch our own district-based therapeutic program in fiscal year 2024. The initiative was designed not only to meet the immediate needs of our students, but also to ensure long-term sustainability and stability within our district. And that program that we launched in 2024 was aimed at students grade 3 through 8. The results with that program have been positive, and in fiscal year 2026, we're looking to expand our program and add in available slots for students in the 9-12 grade range. By creating our own therapeutic program, we have been able to serve students who previously had no or limited access to an outside placement. These are students who might otherwise have seen their educational and emotional needs go unmet. Additionally, we have successfully transitioned several Essex Westford students who were in high-cost outside placements back into our district. This allows them to remain connected to their home community, their peers, and their families, factors that are critical to long-term success for these students. From a financial standpoint, the overall cost of maintaining a therapeutic program within the district is lower than the overall expenses associated with out-of-district placements. This model allows us to stretch limited special education resources further while maintaining a high standard of care and support for our students. Most importantly, our internal therapeutic program offers continuity, consistency, and a deep sense of belonging for the students we serve. Our educators, counselors, and support staff are better positioned to build strong, trusting relationships with students and their families, and the program fosters collaboration and innovation in ways that are difficult to replicate when services are fragmented across multiple agencies and locations. Housing programs within our district also provide more opportunities to implement gradual transition plans and support the integration into more inclusive settings within our schools. As the state continues to grapple with the challenges of supporting students with complex needs, we encourage you to consider the value of investing in district-based therapeutic programs. Our experience in Essex Westford demonstrates that with thoughtful planning and adequate support, schools can be both cost-effective and deeply responsive to the needs of all students. Just speaking to the question that came up for Nicole around expanding the program, we absolutely have had conversations at our district about that. And because 24 was our first year, we wanted to get the program up and running before we expanded it and allowed students from other communities to attend the program. But we did have one student that I know of that came in, was an outside tuition student and came into district. And we certainly are open to that. I think we've been fortunate that we've been able within our district to find space for the program. And I know that sometimes is a challenge for other districts, is being able to have actual space within district to house those students. And we have made some reconfigurations within our budgets that have allowed us to have the space to open up those therapeutic programs right within our district. So those are just speaking to a couple of the questions that came up, but I welcome other questions from the committee.
Great. Thank you. Representative Taylor has a question.
Does
Sure.
having an in-house
program affect either negatively or positively your district's ability to draw down any federal funding?
No, we are still able to submit the costs for that program as an extraordinary cost, just like you would if those were outside programs. That is state funding. And then the federal funding is our IDEA grant, which we still are able to access.
I had a question along those lines. At a basic level, the current state funding formula for extraordinary costs with special education is to essentially cover almost all of those costs above $65,000 a year. Is that sort of providing any kind of wrong incentive for districts to seek out of placement? Because if you're sort of bumping up against $65,000 per kid anyway, does that provide an incentive to say, well, it'd just be easier to use an outside program?
Yeah, I think, what I have said as I look at that formula is the way it is configured right now, the more you spend above 65,000, the greater percentage of cost you get reimbursed from the state. So I do think that the way it is designed right now could benefit to be relooked at.
Yeah, if you and your colleagues at some point in time are meeting and want to have a thought session on that, we'd be open to your recommendations. The other question I have is you both just sort of offhandedly mentioned transportation costs. And I know in our district, they have to use a specialized transportation company to take kids from Addison County up to programs in Chittenden County to the tune of about $500,000 a year. Can you talk a little bit about transportation cost challenges in your districts when it comes to providing special education?
Yeah, Dylan, is that something? Thank you, Dylan. I wonder if we want Dylan to introduce himself for the record, and then that may be something that he wants to speak to.
That'd be great. Welcome, Dylan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I am the co-director of Student Support Services in Essex Westford School District, and appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you. In terms of transportation, I think it certainly is costly when we have to support and transition students to programs, both logistically and financially. If we have had programs in Montpelier, up in Johnson, Burlington, in Colchester, and so trying to design a route to meet all those needs is almost impossible. So you end up with a fragmented approach. Sometimes it's a pretty costly approach. Sometimes students need supervision on those vans or buses, and so then you're trying to find staff to make those trips. So transportation is a real challenge in general right now in Vermont, but certainly the more scattered you are with providing services and the further away you are, it compounds those challenges for sure.
Do you do it all in-house or do you contract out for some of that transportation?
We do almost the majority in-house. We have a transportation department that arranges that. There are times that we've had to pay mileage to parents, or there are times we've had to go out and contract in isolated cases, but our goal is to do it in-house when we can in Essex.
Nicole, any insight from you about the transportation costs in your district?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what Dylan said. We handle the majority, if not all of it, in-house, utilizing our vans, drivers, sometimes a para, like Dylan mentioned, in the vehicle for students who need extra support. I can't put a number to that right now, but I could quantify that for you if that's helpful.
I was just curious because again, I'm just speaking from my experience knowing what goes on in Addison County and the use of a contracted specialized transportation service. And just for one district, it's $500,000, and the other two districts that are there probably spend something similar. So just transportation is an incredible, frankly, hit on the education fund. I also ask because our transportation committee here is often eager to take on new projects and new challenges. And I didn't know if this is one that had a state level approach. I'm not sure that it does. Every district's individualized and has individual needs. But if you have any thoughts in the future about how a statewide approach to that might look,
Regional.
love to talk with you further about it. Representative Brady has a question.
Dylan, I wonder if you can speak to, if money were no object, just the programmatic side of what you're doing in-house versus out-of-district placements, what your experience has been, what student experience is. Again, if there were enough special educators, resources were not an issue, would you ideally be doing most of this kind of intensive special education service within district and building that program rather than I know it's been by necessity in a lot of cases in Chittenden County with closure, but I'm really curious about just from the educational side.
Yeah, I think from an educational side, it would always be our goal to have a in-house capacity, right? I mean, that's part of whether or not a placement is considered restrictive and how close are they to their typical peers. And I think the further away we have a student attend school, the further away they are from their community. And so we try to avoid that. And if money and resources weren't a barrier, I think creating the vast majority of programs in-house would be our goal. We've moved in that direction in a significant way. But it's taken some time and resources and a lot of thought, but we have moved that way, and I think we're proud of that. It does create more work for a district in a lot of ways, right? Like while we save on transportation costs and those types of things, there's a whole new level of staff to manage, to hire, to support, and so that is, I can see if you're a small district and numbers are an issue, you're looking at, do I recreate or try to create a program in-house for a couple of kids, or there's a lot of overhead associated with that, or do I use this placement? So I can see how some districts may not prefer to do that, but I think from an educational standpoint and what's best for kids, trying to serve them close to their community or in their community is always best.
And I think I'll just add to that we are fortunate in Chittenden County that our ability to recruit staff is very different than some of our colleagues in other parts of the state. And special education staff in particular have been more challenging to recruit. So I think if I put on my president of VASBO hat, I want to speak for some of those other districts that are really struggling just to be able to recruit teachers for their general instruction, never mind trying to then recruit additional special educators for these types of therapeutic programs.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably, Dylan, or even kind of what you were just talking about, Heather. I think we passed the BOCES bill last year, hoping maybe for this being an area where there would be some sort of regional collaboration. But I wonder where the kind of tipping point is, not just financially, but programmatically. Like Nicole and Dylan, you're sitting in districts that are quite large, everybody there. Does it make sense? Like, is that about a right-sized program to start saying, oh, well, you should combine all of the in-house alternative programs in Chittenden County? Does that start to lose the kind of in-house, close to your community nature? Like, how sort of consolidated would you want alternative programs to be before you start to lose the kind of programmatic benefit of pretty specialized program?
I would just, before you answer, just add to that, I think last year we passed the BOCES bill with the goal of, especially in rural areas, allowing districts to get together to build that scale to offer these kinds of services in-house or in the larger BOCES region. That's also, I think, sort of the goal of larger districts as proposed in some of the education transformation legislation. And so so if you take what I just said in terms of question and then answer, but like I said, I think the point is sort of like, yeah, where is the point at which you start becoming too big or too inefficient?
Yeah. Too, you know, kids are too far from their own home community.
Yeah, I think that certainly the BOCES opens up that opportunity for districts. I know that in the Chittenden County area, there was, not through a BOCES, but there is a collaborative, Dylan, you can help me with the right word, therapeutic program.
Consortium. We have a
Consortium.
consortium. Yeah, so we do have examples of doing that successfully. We have the Garvin School, which is in Williston. That's a consortium between districts in Chittenden County. We partner with the Howard Center, who kind of operates the program, but we've had that for years, and it's been a very successful program. And I think so. I think there can be opportunity in place for both. You know, Chittenden County is still concentrated enough where that's not a huge long commute for anybody in Chittenden County. Maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes would be the longest commute for somebody who's, you know, over in Milton. So I think both can exist, and I would imagine that model would be important somewhere in the parts of the state where there's just smaller schools and the scale isn't there to support, you know, developing a lot of in-house programs. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's where we sit right now.
Representative Brown has a question.
Yeah, I just was wondering, are there any other sort of issues or challenges that we haven't covered yet? I mean, obviously the staffing and the space within the school is pretty huge. Transportation, like as we potentially think about how we can incentivize more of these programs, like is there anything unexpected that we're missing in the equation of things to think about?
Or how do we encourage and incentivize more of this? Not that we can create special education teachers out of thin air,
Right.
but
Yeah, I mean, for me, like those are the two that I go to right away is you got to be able to staff it, and then you've got to have space for that program to exist, you know, either within your district or you've got to go out and find space and rent it, which, you know, in some areas, you know, that is a bit challenging as well. I don't know, Dylan, do you have other thoughts of things beyond that?
I mean, I think there's probably some districts or directors that would benefit from technical assistance around kind of how to get started with this. I think, you know, the folks in leadership positions come from different backgrounds. Some of them come from, you know, a special education background, but they've never worked or designed an alternative program. So the thought of leading and creating that in their district may be overwhelming for them. So I think something that provides some consultation or technical assistance to those districts that are interested is a good first step. You know, I personally had an experience working in programs and leading programs before, so it wasn't as new to me, but I think I know some colleagues around the state that's nothing they've ever done. And so probably the idea of pioneering that could be a bit overwhelming. So yeah, some consultation, technical assistance that's available to districts to explore options and brainstorm possibilities is a good first step.
that's a great suggestion. Representative Brady?
I'm kind of afraid to ask this, but Heather, especially in some of the foundation formula constructs that exist in this building right now. I wonder how that would interact with like the numbers you've given us, I believe it's categories of weights for special ed under one of Tammy Colby's formulas. What Peter said previously about the potential that the excess spending mechanism could incentivize at a certain point. If you're kind of close, it's easier or even financially advantageous just to seek out of district placements. I don't know if you can shed any light on how this intersects with the kind of foundation formula world we're contemplating.
I'm happy to do that. VASBO, as well as the special educator professional organization, Vermont Superintendent Association, we oppose having a foundation formula that applies weights to special education students. As an example, if we just look at students on the autism spectrum, you could have students that have great range in cost on the autism spectrum. And so by applying weights to a disability category, we don't feel like that is an appropriate way to apply funding for special education. And so I think that needs to be further looked at. And there's also issues around maintenance of effort with special education funding that we need to ensure at the federal level we're complying with that. So I think there's work to be done on the foundation formula and how we fund special education. And I'm not sure that it should be included in the foundation formula and whether it should be sort of separate from that and we figure out the special education separately.
And you provided written testimony on that, is that right, in the Senate?
I believe so. We provided a lot of testimony, but
Yeah.
yes, I mean, absolutely. I know that the special educators have a written position on that, and I believe that we did provide testimony. I'm not sure which committee it was in. I could certainly go back and look at that.
If you have it and can send it to our committee assistant to send to all of us,
Okay.
I think that's something we all need to be looking at a bit more carefully. I'm hearing more and more concerns from districts of all sizes
Yes.
about the special education construct within the foundation formula.
Yes. And I think the other piece to the special education is in the bill, there is language around starting to do some studying and reporting from the Agency of Education on special education. And I think that is important to precede any sort of, look at how we change funding for special education. I think we need to really look at how are we going to change the delivery model before we change the funding model for special education.
One of the, and I'll put this in quotes, incentives we have provided was to put a moratorium on the approval of any more approved independent schools. When that was put in, which was not put in by the House a couple of years ago, I'm guessing the thought was really targeted toward general education approved independent schools. But of course, we don't have a separate definition for therapeutic schools. But there continues to be support for maintaining the moratorium because it is prompting the kind of programs that you all are creating. So any input you have on that moratorium as it exists today is something that we talk about it here from time to time and debate it back and forth. But in a way, it's providing motivation to create in-house programs.
Chair Conlon, is there a carve out for the BOCES portion of that? If a BOCES was to create that, is that carved out and allowable?
That's an excellent question. That we need. I'm not sure they would be defined as an independent school, but
Okay.
Program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be okay because it wouldn't, be a separate
Okay.
school approved by.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what I hear from my colleagues across the state is that, access to outside programs is a challenge. And as Dylan said, in a smaller district, which, I know the future may look different, but right now, the way we are, it may not be cost effective to start an in-house program if the numbers don't warrant that. So I don't have district by district data to be able to speak to that well, but I do think it's something we should be cautious about because we don't want to be penalizing, programs from opening in areas where there is a need and it doesn't make financial sense for a district to bring it in-house currently the way we are structured.
thanks. All right,
Great.
committee members, any other questions? Thank you all very much for taking some time and helping us understand how you're dealing with some of these major challenges.
Absolutely. Thank you
You're
all.
welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.